we actually see a blind man starting to cross the street. And as he
know who didn't see the blind man crossing the street? EunTak's mom, 'cause she's dead.
Welcome to the Kdrama Show. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Kim.
We're here to unpack your all-time favorite Korean dramas and chat about all the reasons that we find these shows so charming.
And so addictive. And we know you do too, so settle in with some ramen and a boba tea while we dive into the Kdrama Show with Ashley and Kim. 10 minutes of
I don't know how much of that you want to...
Well, we'll see.
We'll see.
I will say that the Delulu clip I put at the end was so good. I loved the Delulu clip. I'm sorry.
I live in a Delulu world, so it's no. I was
okay.
I didn't hear it the first time because I was just like, oh, we're going into the ending credits, and
that's why I said something. I wasn't sure if you would have.
And post it, go on with my day, and then when you're like, did you hear the ending? And I was like, crap.
That's why I wanted to say something in case you didn't want to leave it up.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Then I listened to it and I was like, yep, that sounds pretty accurate. That is correct.
Delulu.
Feeding into Ashley's Delulu, I bought a Taehyung blanket.
No, you didn't.
For my bed.
I don't know what to say to that.
You don't have to say anything.
Okay.
I don't care. My niece saw it and she goes, your man's. I was like, yep.
Your man's. His face is on your
fine.
bed. Do you want to get started with the Ashley tea?
Let's get some tea. So,
we'll have tea for the next Ashley tea.
So this is the last segment of our love triangle tea.
That's appropriate. 3 segments for a love triangle.
Oh my goodness. I might need to move my chair up a little bit because this is like one of those.
Buckle your seatbelts, kids.
Almost. It's ridiculous. So.
I haven't heard this yet.
No. I told Kim that there was more tea. I just didn't say what it was. So our 3, there was HyeRi, Han So-hee, and then JunYeol. Mm-hmm. Those are our 3 in this triangle. And apparently what has happened is Han So-hee dropped another big bomb on Instagram.
Is she pregnant?
No.
Is she getting married?
No.
Is she dying?
No.
Okay, tell me.
Okay. So she posted a whole thing saying how in her 20s she sort of dated, not like seriously or anything, and then after turning 30 decided I want a different direction. Okay. So then she met JunYeol for the first time in November of 2023.
Okay.
That is when she met him for the first time.
And they'd broken up in October, hadn't they?
Him and HyeRi?
Yeah.
We don't know when.
Oh,
it was confirmed in November.
So
that they had broken up.
Non-issue.
Okay.
Still.
So, but, said like, he really helped, their relationship helped with her mental health. Was somebody that she needed probably for that phase of her life.
Mm-hmm.
And then she like put HyeRi on blast. Like she called her like 선배님 and said like, correct me if I'm wrong, put out a statement, but I think that you're putting a misleading timeline of when you guys broke up. So like and like a misleading timeline of when JunYeol, like when you guys talked about patching things up. I think you put out a wrong timeline, so correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, so this is what she's also, Han So-hee's been trying to contact, and talk to HyeRi, and there's been zero like connection for the two. Finally, she called out JunYeol. Why hasn't this man said a word throughout the entire thing? He's never made a statement. So why aren't you standing up for your woman, who is your woman, but why aren't you saying anything? Okay.
Oh, snap.
And she even in her post said that there is a chance that she could have been fooled by him. And that he had probably lied to her about when they broke up. When JunYeol and HyeRi had broken up.
There's no way this is real. This has to be staged for publicity.
There's
no
not
way that their companies are letting them put out these kinds of statements.
Well, maybe. Because then the only reason that JunYeol broke his silence was on March 30th, excuse me. So like not even a week ago.
Days ago, yeah.
as of like when we're recording. And he broke his silence to confirm that they had broken up.
Han So-hee?
Han So-hee and JunYeol had broken up.
All of that for them to break up.
Right? So what is ridiculous is, so their agencies.
He clearly lied then.
Yeah.
Or, like I originally said, this was all for publicity to, like,
Right.
promote new projects.
But both of their agencies
broke up
confirmed their
because-
relationship. Remember?
Well, they would if it was for publicity. They would confirm it.
Yeah, but also with them being together. And Han So-hee has been, like, stressed. Like, I showed you, like, the video of, like, she's, like, biting her nails. Like, she's not doing well, taking everything down, making things private. Regardless,
I'm still suspicious.
I am too.
Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
Keep going. But Han So-hee's agency also has confirmed the breakup, saying, quote, they realize that their roles as actors are more important. Her agency also admitted that they were at fault for not taking care of her.
Like Pew Pew taking care of her? Or
No, her agency was saying, like, we didn't take care of our actress. We did not take care of Han So-hee.
Okay.
So I don't know if that was maybe, yeah, this was a publicity stunt,
Yeah.
but we didn't protect her in a way that
enough
actually,
way.
like, did protect her.
And now she's being slandered.
Or we didn't, like, do our research to make sure that he actually was single, that he was not two-timing.
Yeah.
Like, but the fact that the only reason he broke any of his silence was to confirm that he and Han So-hee had broken up, I don't like it at all.
It just all seems a little fishy to me at this point.
Yeah.
The level of drama just feels very out of place in the Korean culture world.
So, yeah, I just... Cause,
Maybe
like,
I'm wrong, but...
I don't know. But Han So-hee, like, in her post, she's, like, apologized for how she's handled things, saying, like, you know, I'll be better at being more adult-like. But regardless, that was 2 weeks of it being public that they were dating.
And now
they have broken up.
I mean, don't... Hell hath no fury.
At least. So, yes, that is my tea for this week. Or this episode. It is maddening.
I just have so many questions.
It is suspicious.
It is a little suspicious, but I don't know. Maybe I am underestimating the power of celebrity love. I don't know.
I have
I don't
no
know.
idea.
It just seems like a weird route to take. I don't know.
Well, and especially with, like...
I feel like I'd want to keep it as under the radar as possible.
Well, and especially to do that to one of the bigger names that is up and coming. Like, Han So-hee is, like, she's been making a name for herself for a while.
Yeah.
But she, especially lately, has been killing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's done so well. Interesting.
That was an awful face.
Just like the what they both had posted on their Instagram post of
Yeah.
interesting. So that is
That's the tea for the day.
that's the tea for the day. And
Had a little lemon in it.
it had like a whole lemon in it.
So do you want to move on to Kim's theories?
Let's hear Kim's
theories.
unhinged theories.
We kind of have a part 1 and part 2 of this because we have my beginning of the episode theories and sometimes my end of the episode theories. But I think this time I only have a beginning of the episode theory because like I was telling Ashley, we've kind of hit that point in the show where questions are sort of getting answered.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't really feel like there's as much room for theory building as much as there is just coasting along with the plot at this point.
Right. We've kind of gotten to the point where
we're going to see if I'm right or wrong.
Well, enough has been, like...
We've done a lot of
given
exposition.
out. Yeah, and so now we have to develop the story.
Yeah.
Now we have to get a little farther into, hey, this is what's happening, or hey, this is how these characters are going to interact together now.
So I only have one, and
Okay.
it's very tiny. And I may have already said this, but I think that the second miscellaneously omitted person is Goblin. And Reaper is meant to reap Goblin.
Okay.
Okay, that's it. All right.
That's a great theory. And no, you haven't mentioned that one before.
I haven't? Okay.
No.
Okay. All right.
And I would say that's kind of that's not a little theory. That's a pretty
major,
big, like...
major theory.
All right, let's go.
I mean, they dropped it too casually in the sense that I think they're trying to make it a big plot twist at the end. That's why I... Stop wiggling. Okay, so recap.
Yes, let's hear it.
Episode 5. Goblin has been very hot and cold with EunTak. One moment he's treating her super kindly, and the next he is basically dumping her on the side of the road to walk home. Not cool, bro.
No.
Sunny and Reaper have their first date, if you can call it that. Reaper slams back 4 coffees without even saying a word before Sunny ends up asking him his name, which he can't answer since he doesn't remember, and this just sends Reaper into a spiral. For a while.
He goes hard.
2 full episodes. Goblin resolves to leave the world before EunTak can actually convince him otherwise. In a night of uninhibited self-pity, Goblin and Reaper are discussing the topic of God and whether or not he looks out for them as much as he does the humans. EunTak has settled into the house and set some ground rules for the boys to adhere to. It shouldn't rain due to Goblin's sadness, Reacher should not make idle threats toward her, and they shouldn't interrupt her studies or suddenly appear before her, at least not without calling, which poses a problem considering the fact that neither of them actually keep a cell phone on them. So DeokHwa volunteers to help them find their cell phones and does his best to try to teach them how, but it's like teaching a 60-year-old person how to work a computer for the first time. Doesn't really go smoothly. EunTak is busy Googling Kim Shin to try to figure out his past. Isn't really getting much. So Reaper starts to reflect on his namelessness, and Sunny is being super upset with him for being such a bad liar, but in all honesty, he just doesn't have anything to offer at this point in terms of what he can tell her. But he enters her number into his phone as Sunny, not Sun Hui. And the
Very
spelling
cute.
is atrocious. So Goblin and EunTak arrive home, and he encourages her to look at the more livable room that he's created for her, and it's super pretty. And she starts to rearrange her room, which makes Goblin smile because he knows exactly what she's doing because his room is right below hers.
Right.
Reaper knocks on the door, asking EunTak for help with a name, and she's like, "Are you referring to the way that if you call my name 3 times, I'm gonna die?" And he goes, No, Jill. And she recommends 3 names that women like: Hyunbin, Wonbin, Kim Woo-bin.
All famous actors.
All famous actors. And so the next day in the car, DeokHwa asks if he's really going to use those names, and finds out that EunTak is actually working at the chicken place that he owns and is planning to sell, at which point he tells his grandfather's secretary, yeah, cancel that, we're not going to do it. And his grandfather's secretary was like, it's fine, I wasn't going to do it anyway.
Wasn't planning on it.
Wasn't planning on this. EunTak is busy trying to go about studying, and Goblin is basically just nonstop pestering her to get her to remove the sword, and she's like, please just wait till I'm done with my entrance exam, and then we can talk about the sword. I'm not going to get kicked out on the street just because you want this sword removed and I lose my, quote, effective value here. Back at the shop waiting for Reaper to call, and EunTak asks if she can call her Unnie for a minute, and she's like, are you pregnant? And EunTak is like, no, I need to talk to you about marriage, essentially. And Sunny's just like, well, is he nice to you? Not really. Do you like him?
No.
Does he like you? Nah. She's like, why are you getting married to this guy?
Right.
And
Stop
she's
it.
like, good question. Back at the house, EunTak and Reaper are basically becoming besties all of a sudden. Goblin is still giving her the cold shoulder because he's 5. And as he sees them becoming friends, starts to, tantrum about it and tries to show off all his pretty things, and they don't really care.
Look what I have.
And finally, Goblin and EunTak start to get at it because she says something about, like, how people get stabbed for a reason.
True.
And he calls her a psychopath, and she says, just give me a boyfriend. And he's like, well, I've already given you one. She's like, where? And he goes, me, here. And then they just walk off in different directions, and Reaper rage flips the laundry. So, UnTak...
Appropriate response.
Yeah, that's kind of my response, too. Reaper is still lamenting his lack of a name and realizes he can't call her back without a name because he's going to sound really stupid. But DeokHwa and Reaper show up to give him a hard time, and this is the point where we learn that Reaper can stop time, but so can Goblin. Reaper and Sunny have their little talk, and they finally schedule a date. And UnTak and Goblin are busy swimming in their awkward tension.
Awkward tension, indeed.
And finally get back into the swing of things by offering to go eat beef together. And we end up in... Right?
Canada, yeah.
Yeah, we end up in Canada
casually.
again. And Goblin actually has his first vision of her as a 29-year-old living her life without him. And this is the point where he says, I have to disappear in order to make you smile. This is the decision I have to make to end my life. And it was really sad.
It was very sad. Especially because she saw him as 19-year-old and talking, she's just like,
What's going on?
You okay? You good, bro?
You still paying?
You're not going to just abandon me
Just
here,
want to
right?
be clear here.
Ooh.
So that leads us into episode 6. Okay.
So, we start exactly where we left off. They're in Canada. He's, having this vision of her meeting somebody at the hotel or restaurant or wherever this place is. Back on in Korea is when Reaper has walked out and he's like gonna go walk to his date with Sunny because it's very human, and DeokHwa was like, yeah, you can't walk all the way to Incheon. Like, that's not possible.
That is not human.
Get in the car. And they're on their way to go meet Sunny. Well, and then we cut to Sunny, and she's actually sitting with one of her friends. And she had told Reaper to bring a friend with him because the best way to catch a guy, with any mistakes that he may make is if he has a friend with him.
That's so true, though.
Facts. Always.
Like seeing the way that someone interacts with people they're not trying to impress that already know them. They're either going to A, call them out for it, unless they're just as sleazy as the other guy.
Right.
Or B, you see that, like, the company they keep is good, bad, or otherwise. You know
Correct.
what I mean?
Well, and so they're sitting there and they see DeokHwa and Reaper get out of a car, and her friend's like, I just want to date one of them because they're handsome. And just like, I put it in because it was funny. Some wench out there is going to be so happy. Why aren't we using wench as a term more often? That is fantastic. Every time I hear it.
The same thing with, in the next episode, Goblin and Unhinged.
Yes.
Like throwing it back there a bit.
Just a touch.
Just a few centuries.
But yeah, so she's like, someone out there should be happy. And Sunny just tells her, yes, I am happy. Hey. So then we cut back to Goblin's house, and UnTak is in her room. She's sitting down on her bed. Goblin is also sitting on his bed. And you hear a knock at the door for Goblin. And he stands and walks out, and he, meets UnTak out there. And he comes up to her and says, pull out the sword, like, right now. Like, I've made that decision. Like, I need you to pull this out. And, I've made my choice. And she's like, okay, well, what's your choice? But also, I haven't finished my research on you yet because I can't find enough information. I found the what is the sword, but you've told me that I'm going to resent it once I found it. I found it, but I don't resent you. So that means that there's something else that's remaining there, and so that is why I can't. And she asks him, you said that it was done by someone who you thought would never do it. Are you by chance someone who did something bad that your records are in history have been erased? If you're getting punished for doing something bad, it's not quite right to pull out the sword. Are you by chance, like, treason? Did you commit something like that? And as she's asking these questions, she's not doing this to be mean or whatever. She's asking, like,
she's trying to
why
gauge the
did
situation.
this happen? Like, yeah, what's the seriousness?
Should I give you the gift of pulling out the sword because this is what you want, or did you do something truly bad that you wouldn't deserve
to have this, right. But, I mean, Goblin, we can't tell how he's gauging this right now, but he has, like, such a pained expression on his face. Because, again, he hasn't been completely truthful with her. Like, there's more than 50% of the story that you have left out for her.
Well,
You've given her, like, maybe 20%.
Well, and for her to choose treason of all of the possible sins probably hits the hardest, because he was as far as we know,
that, yeah.
he died loyal to his king, so much so that he was willing to sacrifice everybody that he loved around him, and to die in order to prove his loyalty to the king.
And was being called a traitor by the court.
Yeah.
So, because we actually get that flashback of him fighting, in the courtyard, getting cut down in front of the king, and like it's real sad. And he just looks at her and says, yeah, what you said is true. It was a busy life just to survive. There were times not recorded in history. I put all my effort into it, but even my death was not honorable.
Yeah, but you have to back up, because right after they show him dying,
oh yes,
it flashes to Reaper and Sunny in the coffee shop casually,
and then yes, yeah.
I mean, like, that is a major detail to me. I don't know why. I mean, I can guess why. I'm not going to. I think I've already gave all my guesses, but
sure.
Anyway.
So yes, it flashes to Reaper and Sunny, and we see him when he was going toward the king, and him knowing that, everything was going to be lost anyway, but continuing to move forward. And at each and every step, there's all these innocent lives that are being lost. And he tells her, my crime was not forgiven, and now I'm amidst my punishment. This sword is that punishment, but even if it's a punishment, isn't receiving 900 years of it plenty? And, like it kind of cuts away, and they're both, like, crying at this point of, like, this is probably the most he's opened up.
Yeah.
He's not being specific with any details, but he's going, like, I can't do this anymore. 900 years is a long time to be punished for something. And she tells him, no, it couldn't be a punishment. A god couldn't have given me that ability. If you were truly a bad person, he'd only create a goblin. He wouldn't have to meet the goblin bride and have her pull out the sword. And, she actually starts wiping the tears off of his face and tells him, I don't know what kind of existence you had, but you are loved for real. And what I meant by something bad was something like falling in love with the king's woman, and you were in prison for it. That was my version. I'm sorry I mentioned treason. Like, that was her just being like, okay, I overstepped there.
Yeah.
Like, that was too much. I didn't need to make you relive something that probably...
a little bit traumatic.
Yeah. Literally stabs you.
Every day of your life.
Constantly. And then Goblin asks her, then can you now make me pretty? She goes, yes, I can't. Ouch.
Oh, I'd have to go back and see the way he asks, because he could have said, like, the literal translation could have been like, can you not make me pretty? In which case, her saying yes is an agreement. So in English,
right,
we say yes. Like, when someone asks a question, we say yes to affirm. No, we say yes
as an answer,
as a positive, and we say no as a negative.
Yeah.
So if I say, did you go to the laundromat?
Yes.
Did you not go to the laundromat? Yes, I did. So those mean the same thing.
Right.
In Korean, yes is an agreement, no is a disagreement. So if I say, did you go to the laundromat? Yes. Did you not go to the laundromat? No.
Right. Yeah, you're acknowledging what was said first, not the question. It's like you're acknowledging this is what you said, and then I'm answering your question, right?
It's more like your statement is true, your statement is false. Yes, your statement is true, no, your statement is false.
Oh, okay.
So if her saying, like, which is why I'd have to go back and listen to it again. So if he had said, though, can you not pull out the sword? Like, something sword, Anya, or,
right.
You can't pull out the sword. And she might have said, yes, I can't. I don't know. I don't even remember what she said exactly. I'm probably lying right now. But yes and no don't
Yes and
mean
no.
the same thing that they do in English.
Right.
They have a different
very
function.
different, very different. But poor Goblin, because he realizes, like, wait, what?
Well, the mood just completely flips in this moment.
Yeah.
Because she's just like, no, it's too pitiful. And he just goes, can we please come to a consensus here? She says
I'm
that
begging you.
he has not put in enough effort himself to make himself pretty. Oy.
Oh.
Insult to injury.
Well, and he just was like, yeah. He looks a little bit like
Is this really
Whiplash,
happening? Is
almost of like,
Yeah.
what did you just say to me?
Well, and then he asks if she wants money, jewels, a house, or love, and she says, why couldn't you think to buy a house and fill it with money, jewels, and love? And he's just like, just go. I can't handle you anymore.
Right, this conversation is over.
And she has to make one last jab about his military service and accuses him of being bad at memorizing. And then after she leaves, he just like falls into his chair and then tantrums about the fact that she met the CEO in the future after he died.
Well, because he goes, she consoles me and cries along with me, but she won't pull out the sword for me. How did she get to that conclusion in the midst of that sadness?
Yeah, we don't know either.
19-year-olds, man, they're...
Been there, done that.
Yeah, I don't even remember half the stuff I did at 19 or said.
I probably wouldn't want to.
Nope.
So, Reaper... Oh, I gotta remember the context. So we're back at the date, and Reaper is getting intercepted by DeokHwa because DeokHwa is a chaebol, which is an heir to a family company. And even Reaper is a little bit impressed by his charisma. He's just kind of like, yeah, go you. Until he realizes that Sunny is also interested in the fact that he's a chaebol. And Sunny actually goes and asks what Reaper's occupation is, and he doesn't really have an impressive answer. He answers extremely vague. And
Well, even DeokHwa just, like, DeokHwa and Reaper look at each other like,
what do we say?
how do we respond to this? Like, how do I help you respond to this even?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, yes, DeokHwa is blocking him pretty hard. But even, like, the women are like, yeah, okay, yeah, you're a chaebol, okay. Like, we don't fully believe you.
Yeah. I mean, why would you?
Right. And I love that when she asks DeokHwa what his profession is, he goes, I'm more like a younger brother than a friend. I'm a third generation heir, and maybe that's why I'm being punished with a punishment like you.
Gosh.
No.
All right, we're a little full of ourselves. Well, he doesn't have an answer for the job, but he does have a name now, and it is Kim WooBin, which is, as we've said before, the actor from The Heirs or Black Knight, The Black Knight. And Sunny's friend accuses him of being a waiter at a club, but he has no real career. Sunny starts to ask him for a business card. He has none, and this will become his fixation for the foreseeable future. And
poor guy.
the friends realize that DeokHwa was being truthful about being an heir because they've Googled him or looked him up on Naver. I didn't recognize you since tall, rich, and handsome chaebols only exist in dramas. You have such a cool name, Sunny. And Reaper looks so angry.
Well, I told you about this last week.
And the sky just gets a little darker.
Well, what's funny about it is, she tells DeokHwa, your name is so cool, and DeokHwa, and I have in caps, with all the riz, tells Sunny that her name is also very cool. And that's when Reaper is just like, Thundercloud.
You've got to go.
I will say your name 3 times,
one
boy.
way or another. You've got to leave or I'm killing you right here.
Immediately.
But he looks at DeokHwa and he just says, I'm going to leave first. And DeokHwa's like, why are you going to leave? And he's like, no,
okay.
you say that right now. And he goes, I'm going to leave first, gets up and leaves. And then he looks at Sunny's friend and says, you too. And she just goes, bye. And then Sunny's like, what just happened? And he looks at Sunny and says, go, forget everything that just happened.
Rude.
And she's like, where did they go? Oh, no.
Oops. My bad.
So Reaper, in somewhat poor attempt to recover this awful excuse for a date,
Oh.
has presented Sunny with the jade ring.
Mm-hmm.
And she asks in exchange for this a number, in exchange for like the inconvenience or whatever. She asks for a number, but not Reaper's, DeokHwa. And at first he is pretty, his feathers get a little ruffled again.
Yeah.
But she says that he is her lord, her landlord.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, okay, sure, you can have it. And he starts to fumble around with the phone, not really sure how to navigate it. And Sunny offers to just do it since he's taking forever. And he just kind of like tosses the phone away so that she won't touch him.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, that was rude. But I'm going to overlook this because you're just kind of weird in general.
You're strange.
But I love the names in his phone. We have DeokHwa,
Mm-hmm.
Tokebi, which is Goblin. Tokebi Shimbu, which is the Goblin's wife. And then we have Sunhui Aniko Sunny, which means Sunny, not Sunhui. And then she says, I guess you know the Goblin and his wife. And Reaper replies, oh, yes, unintentionally. Just very earnestly, like, oh, yeah, I know him. And she's like, the only goblin that I know is a rice cake shop.
Completely different. Well, if we back up just a tiny bit, it's super cute before she tells him that DeokHwa is her landlord.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's the ring. And, you know, he puts it down and she tells him, you know, it's okay. Like, you paid for it, WooBin. And he just gets this grin on his face of like,
she said my name.
She said my name. I mean, it's not your name, but she said your name. I'm very happy. Because that's then after she makes the comment about DeokHwa being her lord, but her landlord. And he was just like, but you just said my name. Like, let's go back to that one.
Yes.
Well, back at the house, Goblin is medicating himself again with another handful of pills. And he's wrapped in a blanket. And Reaper comes and he has a drink in his hand and he sits down next to him and asks him, you know, does human medication actually work on you? And Goblin tells him, well, I choose between medication and alcohol. How did your meeting or your date go? And he goes, I'm drinking alcohol. She says I'm a strange person since I have a lot of not haves, especially a business card. Like, we are pouting so hard.
Yes, we are.
And Goblin, he, you know, claims he's helping and trying to comfort him, but tells him, you know, well, you fooled her well, considering you're not a person. And he's just like, is that the bipolar or is that the depression talking?
Volcano dust.
Right? He goes, no, it's ache. And he's thinking back to when he had told EunTak that she's just a side effect that came from defying the principle of not getting involved of human life and death. And the time where he had said, if that's what it takes, I love you. Like, he's having these flashbacks of just, like, things that he has said to her that, you know,
insulting and
are not kind. And he's like, they're now coming back to haunt me. And the messing with this, or the side effect of messing with human life and death is too big. For a big person, there's nothing less desirable. And Reaper tells him that, you know, he only got tall, which the little explanation next to it was like, you're just immature still. And Goblin even admits, he's like, for someone who's been alive as long as I have, I should be able to live without spitting out words that I shouldn't. Maybe I do deserve to die. Like, we are melancholy hard at this moment.
Yes.
That I'm surprised it's not raining inside the house.
This is true. Maybe he's keeping it contained inside the blanket.
Maybe. Ooh, I wonder if that's possible.
He's just sweating everywhere.
Oh, gross.
Yeah.
Well, and Reaper turns to him, tells him there's no death deserving death. And he looks at Reaper like, really? And Reaper finishes it by saying, of course, there are always exceptions.
Leave it to a friend to kick you while you're down.
Oh, and then he goes, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you would laugh. They're really bad at cheering the other one up.
They are. But they try. They do their best.
Try. So then Reaper asks him, you know, why were you taking medicine? Did something happen to the miscellaneously omitted? And Goblin just says, no, we were talking about this and that. And she cried saying that I was pitiful. So I had my hopes up. She said she cried because she was sad, but won't pull the sword out for me. Not like only she cried. Again, we're still... And this is not how interactions are supposed to go. The advice that Reaper gives, one, he should not be giving advice because he doesn't understand women, period. Do not listen to this advice.
He doesn't understand people, let alone women.
Right. So Reaper turns to Goblin and was like, wow, you cried? And Goblin's like, yeah, barely. And Reaper goes, pathetic. You're done now. Women like the uncaring, indifferent ones that won't look them in the eyes. Those kinds of men. You show your tears. No, we don't want you to be uncaring and indifferent. It's actually very infuriating.
That hurts your cause, just saying.
It makes us go, don't want to talk to you anymore. So, but Goblin quickly points out, yeah, well, you cried the first time you saw Sunny. So.
That was literally the first thing you did before words even left your mouth.
And Reaper tells him, okay, well, you just need to make a decision quickly, whether it's good or bad, one way or the other, like, you're not Hamlet. And Goblin begins to talk about how Shakespeare was actually one of his friends, and they just only had a conversation about, to be or not to be, and then he ended up using it as a grand masterpiece. And Reaper, chokes on his drink and goes, do you need to go to the hospital? Have you heard of the placebo effect? Do you need some counseling? Can we please do something, because I cannot handle you anymore. I am done.
The rain cloud needs to go away, figuratively and literally.
Honestly.
Did you... Okay, you finished with the Shakespeare part.
I finished with the Shakespeare part. I feel like I talked it up.
I wasn't prepared because you stopped talking in the middle of one of my bullet points.
Oh,
and so in my brain, I was like, oh, no, she's not done. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Goblin has said that the sword has begun to ache, right?
Mm-hmm.
Reaper turns to Goblin and asks if he wants a hug. He just goes, bring it in, buddy. And Goblin just looks at him, he pulls out the sword and starts to wield it, and he swings it in front of his face very menacingly, like he looks like the opening scene of a video game character select.
Yes! Oh my gosh.
And he just keeps doing this, and Reaper just goes, well, if you hate the thought this much, never mind. I'm trying to be a good friend here.
Trying to help you out, bro.
You don't want me to make you laugh, you don't want me to hug you, what do you want from me? Why am I here? Just a drinking buddy, it's fine.
And you have a sword. In my face. Constantly.
So, Sunny is busy admiring, I'm guessing this is supposed to be ring, it says room. Sunny is busy admiring her ring. And she's just going, oh, it really does belong to me. It fits so perfect, right? Mm-hmm. And Kim's theories. EunTak asks where she got it, and Sunny tells her that the man from the bridge actually gave it to her, and EunTak gets really excited for her, oh, the man from the bridge.
Right.
And, she comments actually on how old the ring looks, which we know, of course, that it's from a different era.
Completely.
Yeah. And at this moment, a ghostie appears behind EunTak and starts talking about how she was given a ring once, and now she wants bloody revenge, which
Yikes.
I'm foreshadowing, maybe?
Bloody revenge is a little intense.
But not unheard of from what we've seen in the flashbacks. So
True.
the Ajima ghost starts to scold this other ghost and just stop scaring people. No one cares. And then asks EunTak for her help in letting her son win the lottery. Mm-hmm. So EunTak thinks about this. She sprints home and she starts to shower Reaper in compliments, just saying she really wants to model herself after him. Mm-hmm. He's this paragon of upstanding values and whatever. She then starts to ask for the winning lottery numbers, since if she learns them, she might find time to remove the sword, and Goblin just rattles them off right then and there for her. And the next day, EunTak is in the street whispering to the Ajima, and to the Ajima ghostie, and Goblin catches her in the act. Later that evening, after school, she is busy trying to buy a lottery ticket at a convenience store several times with a few different tactics.
A couple.
The first is just kind of the direct approach. Second, she tries a disguise. The third, she just begs.
If you buy it for me, we can split
it down the middle.
Let's
totally
go.
legal. I don't think even in America, it's not even legal for convenience store operators to buy tickets in their store.
Not if you're on the clock.
Yeah.
At the very least.
Okay, because I
don't know. It's been a long time since
I don't know anything about it.
Done cashier.
I just know there's super strict rules around.
Yeah, because it can be fraud.
Yeah, exactly. She finally gets kicked out of the store by this guy. He's had enough of her. She's clearly been there a while. And Goblin appears behind her. She's banging on the window, begging him to let her back in. But he's asking her if this is the library. And he told her that the son of the Ajumma didn't even have the time to buy the ticket since he is so busy working. And she accuses him of this actually being his fault since the farms had been rained out by a steady year of rain, or a year of steady rain at this point. And he just tells her, I'm not the only one who controls rainfall. Like, it's not just me.
Right. Yep.
Jurisdictions.
I can't do it over the entirety of...
Right. It would just never stop raining if I thought about it.
Yeah.
But he says there's not going to be a winner this week, so the money is going to carry over, and then the son is going to have a very meaningful dream. And the convenience store worker is sitting in his chair, looking at the ticket, watching the lotto numbers go up on the screen. And then you just see him fall over in his chair, and EunTak had, chosen all the correct numbers. So he's like, man, should have done that 50-50 with
Darn it anyway.
But the Ajumma thanks EunTak, and EunTak then asks where the student that she had helped clean up her dorm had gone.
Mm-hmm.
And the Ajumma tells her that she has joined the stars since her deep sorrows were amended, and the Ajumma is soon to follow. I thought that was kind of sweet.
Yeah, it's like you get your closure of, okay, I got to help or I got to resolve X, Y, Z.
Your loved ones are taken care of.
I don't have to worry anymore. But then, yeah, so EunTak is back home now, and she's just like, drinking some water, kind of in deep thought, and Reaper joins her, and they're in the living room, and she asks Reaper, when I die, can I meet God? And he asks her why, and she tells him, I want to demand an explanation, because Goblin is such a lonely guardian, and people probably aren't aware of it, and that's when people become distant from the world is, until somebody nudges them towards it again. She's like, I know that, and that's why I plan to remove the sword for Goblin. And Reaper's just kind of like, what? Because he wants the house. So, which is why he's been telling her all this time, I'm on your side. Let's go. And she goes, I want to help make him pretty and help him shine brighter. And Reaper's like, yeah, but you're in no position to worry about others. Once you lose your value, you can get kicked out. Are you okay with that? And she goes, you know what? It doesn't matter. None of it's mine anyway. It's not like hell only exists in hell. And we just get this flashback to how her aunt has treated her for her whole life over insurance money. I mean, there's school. And she goes, like, I can, my life now is like heaven, and I don't, though I don't understand what it means for Goblin to become pretty, I want to help pay him back. And then, when I see you that's trying to encourage me, pulling out the sword, I'm so certain that it's good for him. Little bit of regret.
Well, I think that he wasn't so much trying to get the deed at this point as he was realizing that she doesn't know what the context of this situation is, and Goblin has not told her.
Well, and it's more of a still. At the beginning, yeah, he knew that she had no idea what it meant, but the fact that she still does not know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's him now being like,
that's a crappy thing to do.
Don't love this. Reaper is out. He's doing his job. Unfortunately. And we actually see a blind man starting to cross the street. And as he
know who didn't see the blind man crossing the street? EunTak's mom, because she's dead. I will be going now.
I had to throw my glasses.
Got a little warm in here. Oh, whenever you think they're gonna zig, that's when you zag.
Oh, heavens.
You want to try that again?
Oh, no.
I broke her.
No, not like a couple weeks ago.
No, nothing will be like that.
I just can't look at you. So Reaper is out doing his job, and the case that he has this time is actually a blind man that has begun to cross the street. And actually, as he is crossing the street, the woman in red is walking behind Reaper, and she actually passes Reaper from behind. And we see her walk into the hospital, and she's going down the halls, and this young girl at a doorway greets her, and she just, puts her finger to her lips, like, shh, don't tell anyone. She walks into her room.
But she calls her Halmoni, which means grandmother.
Yeah, the little girl does.
Even though she appears as the young woman in red, the little girl knows she's the Halmoni.
Which is children, man. Or maybe she's like EunTak and has the ability just to, like, recognize.
True. Yeah.
But she walks into this room and begins to, like, smooth the hair of this little boy who his heart monitor is going crazy. He's sweating and he's breathing really heavily. And she tells him, you don't need to be in pain anymore because your mom is really, really worried about you.
And that's when I was like, Reaper.
But instead, his heartbeat, gets regular again. And, like, it's like the sickness has left him. And she smiles like, okay, you're going to be okay now.
And that's when I was like, Goblin.
Well, at the tea shop, Reaper is actually talking with the blind man, and he is talking with a different soul, and she goes, "Can I be reborn as Kim Tae-hee?" And she's a famous actress. Yeah, she's the one from Hi Bye Mama.
Yeah, but I was just thinking the name.
Yeah, but that's not till next episode.
I know,
but yes, yeah, I know. That's what I was like when I after like he came back in, I was like, that's
a Quinky Dink.
Yeah. Anyway, interesting. But she's like trying to flirt with Reaper and just be like, hey,
get on his good side.
Help me out. And he just turns, grabs like a receipt or something.
He grabs a ticket off of a ticket counter.
Yeah, and then he just like is going through his long day. And, next is a couple that's, bickering with each other. Why don't you want to be with me in the next life? I was with you in this life. Like, why should I have to suffer again? Like, they're just being rotten.
Awful.
And then we see the blind man from earlier, and he's sitting there, and he goes, okay, well, what's next? And Reaper tells him, well, you can walk through that door, and that's the door to the afterlife, because it's like a U-turn. And so he stands up, walks to the door, and as he gets close to the door, we hear this dog barking. And when he opens it, there's a dog sitting there, and it actually was his seeing eye dog named Happy. And Reaper tells him, he wanted to wait for you before going. And so we have the two of them.
All dogs go to heaven.
All dogs go to heaven. And they walk up the stairs together. And Reaper just kind of is sitting there, and it's like he's just like thinking things over. And part of me wonders if it's just like one of those days where you're just like questioning everything. I'm dealing with this flirty, flighty person. I'm dealing with these people who cannot seem to get along.
Seems like everyone around you has no depth.
Right. But then ending his day with, on a more positive note, and just being like, what am I doing here? I mean, I have no choice, but what am I doing?
Yeah.
And he actually goes to the passenger bridge where he had first met Sunny, and he picks up a business card, and it's like for like a personal loan, something. And he's like, well, even he has a business card. Like we are centered there right now.
This is all we can hyperfixate on.
But then he hears footsteps, and he just kind of was like, I know those footsteps. And starts to panic of like, crap, I don't know where I'm supposed to hide now.
I don't have a business card.
And puts on his hat and disappears. And it is actually Sunny walking towards him, and she ends up stopping like right in front of him, and she is
raging.
She's raging. And I mean, rightly so. And she's just like, should I kill him? Why doesn't he answer his phone? What does he do for a living? Well, he makes me obsess over him in this way. He's the kind of man that's going to cause someone to get ill. And, she pulls out her phone. She's like, I'm going to call him. And all he sees is that she's wearing the ring. Mm-hmm. And she's calling his phone. And then here's this ringtone just somewhere.
There's literally not a soul around her. There's not a soul around.
And she's like looking around like,
that's freaky.
What is happening? And he realizes that it is his phone ringing. She turns, and I want you to tell me how you felt about this scene, because it's really comical and also like completely improbable.
Well, to be fair, he can stop time.
Right.
So
Right, there
that's
is
probably the only excuse I have for the way that this took place. Otherwise, yeah, I was like, how did you get from there to on your hands and knees underneath her back so she wouldn't fall and hit the ground?
Right.
It's the only explanation I have is that you can stop time. I don't know if that's weak or
no.
otherwise,
That's what I've always thought.
Yeah.
Because she turns and suddenly she is one leg in the air, the other one bent, like laying on her back,
floating essentially.
And she's just like, what is happening?
And she just like hops up and kind of like eeps and runs down the bridge.
Nope, I'm done. I'm out.
And Reaper just looks so defeated, like, I didn't have a choice, but we're not helping our own case here.
No, we are not.
It was cute. Back at the chicken shop, EunTak is busy serving customers, and Sunny busts in the door and goes straight to the fridge, looking pretty panicked still. And so EunTak is, a little bit concerned and goes over to her and asks if something had happened, since she looks so shaken up, and Sunny asks her if she believes in things such as ghosts, at which point EunTak looks over to the side and sees her two ghosty friends that follow her around everywhere, and the one just always does this thing at her. And it's, anyway, it's a little bit disconcerting. And so, I lost my spot. Sunny asks her, after they kind of talk it out, Sunny asks her just to not come to work for the time being. And at first, EunTak is like, why? Like, am I losing my job? And she says, well, it's the entrance exam that's coming up, and you need to get a 100. And EunTak states, well, that's probably not going to get me into college. And Sunny tells her, well, just miss a few then, if that's what's going to get you into college. And it's just really sweet because EunTak says thank you. But the note on that little bit was that the perfect score is 500, so a 20% probably isn't going to get you into a very good school. Right. But that was really sweet of Sunny.
Yeah, she's like, okay, yeah, thinking 100's the best you can do.
Yeah.
Just do your best.
Do your hardest. Goblin is at home reflecting on the fact that EunTak has said that her only wish is for him to be happy, which he says is a little bit difficult given the situation. He waits for her on the street on her commute from school or work, we don't really know, but he watches her approach, and she's not really seeing him. She's kind of looking down at her phone or something, and he just says, life is walking toward me. Death is walking towards me. To life, to death, you are walking toward me without tiring. I say these words. I am not sad. This is enough for me. It is enough. And then she sees him, and they meet. They greet each other. And she asks him again if he still can't see her future. And he actually lies to her and says that he can't, since he would have to essentially admit his absence in her life at that point. And she says that she's curious, her life at 20, her life at 30. And he tells her to continue on just as pretty as she always has been. And she says, what if I'm ugly for a day or two in there? And he responds with, it could be a month or two.
Rude.
Jerk.
No.
But she asks how he decides to help people. And they're kind of walking down the road at this point. And they stop in front of this bookshop. And he says, well, it's usually kind of at a whim, just whatever the situation is. And he tends to favor helping children since it was a child that helped him when he first began this new life. And then she asks why he ended up helping her mother since she was actually an adult. And he tells her it's because she wasn't asking for herself, but for EunTak. And she starts to cry, and she just tells him that she's grateful. Then Goblin goes to comfort her with like a pat on the head. And then she kind of teaches him the proper way to comfort someone by stroking their head in comfort. And you kind of see in his eyes, he just melts for a minute.
Yeah.
Like it all kind of goes away, and he's thinking about maybe just staying. And before that can really take root, he just says, today is one of the days. And she goes, what? And he goes, that you're ugly.
Again, rude.
Anyway.
Well, because she even tells him, she's like, I was trying to teach you something. Like, come on.
So you just kick me while I'm down. That's all it is today.
But they get back to the house, and she stops, and EunTak sees through the little picture into the little breezeway area that there's actually this giant Christmas tree that is very beautifully decorated. And she asks him, did you do that with your delicate hands? because when it came to like her room being decorated, he's like, yeah, this hand and this hand worked really hard to pay for things, and you know, so she's kind of playing along to that, and he goes, yes, and they need to rest, and then you know, he turns to walk away, and UnTak stops him and apologizes, saying, you know, I was only thinking of myself. I was worried that I was going to get kicked out, or that you would go meet other women once I turned you pretty, but I've made my decision. I'm going to make you pretty. You know, how could anything bad come from this? And where do you want to be made pretty? Do you want to do it in front of the tree? And Goblin's going, wait, do you mean right now? And she's like, well, yeah, why not? And he just grabs his phone and is like, hello, and begins to run away. And she's like, your phone's upside down. Goblin comes into Reaper's tea shop, and Reaper goes, are you dead? And he goes, no, I'm just rehearsing.
I need a drink. I'm just rehearsing.
Wow, dude. But then he informs Reaper that UnTak has agreed to pull out the sword. And this is when Reaper again is like, she still doesn't know what that means.
You suck.
Yeah. And he's like, yeah, you know, she really likes me. That's going to be a problem. And Reaper goes, yeah, but she's going to go to college, and there's so many handsome young men there. And Goblin's just like being like, no, like, she likes me. And Reaper goes, yeah, well, there's a huge age difference alone. He's like, well, 900 years. And he goes, why do you always lessen your age when you're 939 years old? And Goblin just tells him, because I was born early in the year, I'm actually a year younger. And this is another moment where I'm pretty sure that the actual, like, actors are breaking and laughing and then just going, oh, I'm not supposed to laugh. Pull it together.
He says, she is the only one who can kill me, but she makes me want to live. And Reaper to back up a little bit, the part where Goblin says that she seems to have a crush on him, and then Reaper says, I don't know if you're trying to have a laugh or pick a fight.
What way do you want to go?
But yes, so she says that she's the only one who can kill me, but she makes me want to live. And Reaper reminds him that he's lived plenty without her. But Goblin says that he just can't remember life before her anymore. Just kind of sad and special. Back at the house, he reflects on all the moments that she brought a little brightness to. And UnTak is standing outside his door knocking, but there's no answer. And we actually see that Goblin is leaning against the door, just kind of stopping himself from getting any closer to her because he's really feeling the pull of her affections for him, trying to convince him in a different direction. And he's uncomfortable with the fact. But UnTak is leaving school. Here's a car horn beep behind her, and she smiles, thinking that, oh, Reaper's back. Goblin is back. I even typed Reaper. Goblin is back, but it's actually the two loan shark thugs that had kidnapped her before. And before they can actually do anything to her, they start to, like, brawl and argue with one another. Thank you, Reaper. But
for the younger one stepping on the older one's
shadow. I mean,
love it.
Whatever it takes, I guess. But Shinu's secretary actually just appears behind her, asking her if she knows who these loan sharks are. And she asks how he knows that they're loan sharks, and he admits to having been a loan shark before. And these thugs are now in police custody, can't stop arguing because of the curse. And even they're just a little bit confused about their own fighting, and they even admitted, like, we don't even bother people anymore because we just fight all the time.
With
we
each other.
Got put in the hospital for beating each other up. As soon as we were discharged, we immediately got into another fight. Like, we're not even hounding people for their money. We just fight.
Can't help ourselves. Don't know what to do.
But UnTak is given a ride home by Shinu's secretary and walks in the door to a very stone-faced goblin. At dinner, he's eating his steak wordlessly, leaves the table without even acknowledging Reaper UnTak. Reaper smiles at UnTak and very proudly announces that that he had taught Goblin how to coolly avoid eye contact since, women like that kind of thing. And after dinner, Reaper and UnTak are busy peeling garlic at the table across from each other, and UnTak tries to pick his mind a little bit about what's happening with Goblin, but Reaper basically says to just drop it before he calls her name 3 times. And he admits at this point that he doesn't even need to say it 3 times, but just just wants to do his job. And she says, your job must be difficult. And he reminds her that she is the reason that his job is difficult, as the miscellaneously omitted. And then he tells her that that Goblin was born early in the year, but that's all that he can share. And EunTak asks about the fact that they met about the fact that Reaper and her had met at 9 and again at 19. And he tells her that the moment just before completion is the most dangerous. And he asks if she wants to hear a secret. And in his mind, he's saying, you'll meet a Grim Reaper when you're 29 too. Even if it's not me, the fate of the miscellaneously omitted. The world needs order, or that's the fate of the miscellaneously omitted. The world needs order, and 9 is the closest number to God's perfect number 10. So good luck with that. And then it goes back to their actual conversation, and she's asking, like, why are you just staring? You gonna tell me the secret now? And she just tells him, oh, sorry, you need to finish the rest of the garlic. I gotta go take care of the laundry.
Because, yeah, he even, like, tries to play off, like, the secret was like, oh, well, I dreamed well. I could have gotten a special promotion. Almost like the reason that you didn't get taken away at 9
is because of my career moves.
Yeah, just to kind of play it off.
Yeah.
So Goblin is actually walking through that breezeway and is stopped by EunTak, and she says, I can't tell who is in a hurry. Like, do you see me now? And he's like, yeah. And she goes, okay, well, are you mad at me about something? If not, then why are you acting like this? And how far back are you going to be mad? Like, how far back are you taking this? And he's like, when did I do that? Trying to be like, and they're having two different conversations and two different mental, emotional battles going on that neither one is actually involved in either one. And she tells him, like, well, right now you're also angry at me. And he goes, who do you think you are? Exactly who are you that you keep calling me and causing a disturbance? Why do you keep flustering me and confusing me? Who are you too? It would have been nice if you pulled the sword out when I asked, since that's your worth. And she stops him and was like, yeah, well, I told you I would, and you're the one who didn't talk to me or answer. And I thought maybe you were waiting for the first snow, because that's what we agreed on. That was the original, yeah, I'll pull it out, when the first snow happens. And you know what? Never mind. Since you live forever, maybe you have plenty of time to waste. But because I'm an ordinary human being, time is golden money. Until when do I have to be on standby? I'm busy too with school and work. And Goblin's like, okay, well, tomorrow then. And she's like, well, why not today? I have time today. And he tells her, tomorrow. I don't want it to be today. The weather's too nice today. And I'm going to go on a walk with you. And then we don't know for how many days this goes on, but every day she is like, okay, are we going to go today? And he just continues to tell her tomorrow.
He says, tomorrow, the weather's nice and I want to go for a walk. Tomorrow, the weather is bad today and I have to pick you up later. Tomorrow, just one more day.
Yeah, and it's just, he's pushing off the inevitable, and she's just going.
And she doesn't understand why. This is very confusing to her. Because in her mind, all that there is, he just stands to benefit from it. Mm-hmm. And she's the only one who's really risking anything by losing her effective value. So she just doesn't know how to interpret this delay other than to just make her frustrated, I think.
Right, yeah, which
she is.
Yes, and that's their two different conversations and their two different emotional roller coasters that they're on that, like, yeah. You tell her what actually is going to happen, she's going to be mad at you. She's going to be upset.
Well, more so now that you've withheld for this long. What's going to happen?
For a significant period of time now. Yes. So, in EunTak's room, she's actually writing a list out. And she's like, see if I, don't walk away with anything, pretty much. And at the same time, Goblin has started to get his affairs in order. He has given the painting to Sunyu and tells him, I have many regrets. I need you to burn this painting for me. He, also I want you to take care of EunTak, like, make sure she lives well, has everything she needs.
This is your last duty as my keeper,
this is the
protector.
last thing I can tell you. And they say their goodbyes with tears. DeokHwa is given his card and told to live his life freely. It is a reward for him growing up well.
I just love the juxtaposition of the two, the reverence of the grandfather, and just like the youthfulness and just like the tunnel vision of DeokHwa and like his longing for his card.
Because DeokHwa's just staring at it like,
it's back.
Finally have you.
I'm complete.
And he looks at it and his mom goes, Samchon, 사랑해. Looks
He
back
says,
at
"I
this
love
card.
you." And Goblin just pats his head because he's like, this is DeokHwa. This is why I didn't tell him, because I get to see him as himself before I have to say goodbye. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I thought it was sweet. He just calls him brat one more time and then moves on.
Moves on. Well, and then he tells Reaper, I've left the deed for the house in your room, and I want you to erase EunTak's memory so she has no regrets. And then we realize that this is on the phone, and they're trying to video chat, but Reaper cannot hear him. Or
He hasn't like muted or something.
When he's just like, he hasn't out to here.
On the street.
On the street. And like, first of all, you don't need to have your phone out that far. You can have your phone like right here.
Yeah.
So you can hear, or have a normal phone call.
I love how Goblin gets frustrated and hangs up. He's like, put your earbud in so you can hear me. And then he gets frustrated and hangs up. And Reaper's over here like, I can't see you anymore. Did you put the phone up to your ear? No, he didn't.
He said he was done with this conversation.
Yeah, exactly. But we see Goblin's excuses kind of being like fulfilled, I guess, if you will. It shows UnTak and Goblin walking in the nice weather. It shows Goblin picking up UnTak from school with an umbrella, and this extra day that he takes to just look at and admire her while she's sitting in like that hallway by the breezeway by the laundry room. And UnTak is just sitting there thinking about something, and when he approaches, she asks why he's being so weird, and then proceeds to take like his hand in hers, which kind of shocks him a little bit because, they don't really touch each other much. This is kind of an intimate move. But she starts to write something like in the palm of his hand, and she's really thinking about it. And he's just kind of staring at her. But once she gets done with the tracing, she asks him what this word means, and he replies "chong," which apparently means to hear. And she says, "Okay, good night," and then just scurries away. And we find out that UnTak had actually been translating one of the journals that Goblin had written in Hanja, which is what they, the Chinese, they would have used back in the day. Goblin interrupts her studies with this set of luxurious gifts for her, and it included a leather bag, a perfume, and $5,000. And he says that the perfume is for when she goes away to college and gets a boyfriend, and she should go on dates looking pretty. He then says, today is the sword. And she asks for 5 minutes before as he stands up to leave. And then as he's walking out the door, she asks if love could possibly be among the things that he had given her that night. And he just looks at her and says, no. And she says, just thought I would ask to cover up her hurt in that moment. But
well, and then they leave and they walk through the door, and they are in the buckwheat field, which was our first introduction to Goblin being pulled from UnTak blowing out a flame. Also where he, was left to die. Yeah. And, they walk out and she's like, wow, it's so pretty. And Goblin tells her, this is my beginning and my end, and I will ask this of you. And she's like, hold on. Not so fast. Like, I am all for you becoming pretty. But then, I have no effective value anymore. And so I wrote a few things down, and she just hands him this notebook, and it has a contract, and it's, A will ask this of B, and she just has this list, and it ends with like the ones that she's most concerned about is the last condition, and the last condition states B will respond to A's summons on the first day it snows each year. And then he looks at her and he's like, well, is that why you asked for my name? And she's like, no, I actually just wanted to know what your name was. And so he signed the contract. And then it begins to snow. And UnTak gets really excited and was like, were you the one that did this? Like, this is really cool. And he tells her that I wanted at least one memory like this.
This is the point, though, where I was like, we have flowers, we have snow, and soon there will be blood. Okay.
Then Tak asks, is it time now? And he's like, yes. And she gets ready, and she goes, okay, well, do you have any last words? And he tells her, the time I shared with you was all blindingly bright, because the day was good, because the day was not good, because the day was just right. I loved each and every day. Also, no matter what happens, it's not your fault. And she just looks at him and is just like, okay.
Are you actually turning into a broom?
Yeah, like, interesting choices for your last words.
I was blubbering like a baby at this point. I was also very sleep deprived. But when I tell you that I was like,
oh,
yeah.
no.
My husband was asleep on the couch next to me. It was great.
Great times.
Not awkward or sad at all.
No. Well, he kind of just, chuckled sadly at her comment of like, you're turning into a broom now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just tells her nothing of the kind will happen. And she's like, okay. And she like gets in a stance of like, okay, I don't know how hard this is going to be. I gotta get this just right. And she, I don't know if you've ever held a sword before.
Can't say that is something I have done.
It's, I mean, I have like a little mini sword. You don't need 2 hands for it, but I'm not unfamiliar.
Mm-hmm.
But especially if you're going like this to grab something, to pull, you need to have a good stance, and you need to have like, so you're not going to fall.
Right.
Because that's a high chance. But she just gets in this like position. It's almost like, okay, I got this.
Brace yourself.
Yeah, and she goes to grab a sword, and Goblin just closes his eyes and is like, okay, the time has come.
I return to nothing.
I will return. And she goes, and her hands just, whoom,
with
like it's mist,
mm-hmm.
or like a hologram or something like that. She's just like,
that was weird.
That's not right. And she tries again, and this time, like, falls into Goblin because she has put so much effort into actually trying to grab it that she like bonks her face,
mm-hmm.
and he opens his eyes and is just like, what you doing? What's going on? And she's just like, why? I see it. Why can't I pull this out? And he's like, well, did you put enough strength in your hands? And then he also watches her hands go right through the handle of the sword.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just like, he starts to like point at her, like to raise his hand and just to be like, get in her face almost. And she's like, you told me it wasn't going to be my fault. You promised. Well, then he tries to tell her, well, then you're not the bride. Like, give me back that contract that I signed. Like, this doesn't mean anything. She's like, I think I know what it is. I think I know what the problem is. It's that thing. We can never address it properly. She's like, but like in the fairy tales, there's the cursed prince. Like, there's something that has to happen first. And he's like, well,
Before
what do you mean?
He can undergo a transformation.
Right, you have to have your from frog to prince transformation before what you're wanting to accomplish
mm-hmm.
can. And he's like, well, what do you mean? And this is when she grabs his coat collar and just plants one on him. And I love her awkward position because she's just like leaning forward.
Like schoolyard crush kind
middle
of kiss.
School,
yeah.
Junior high kiss.
It's not really because you like the person or...
It's a stage kiss.
Yeah,
it is like
it's just
performing
awkward.
on stage.
Mm-hmm. But I thought it was interesting how in that moment, like, the snow started to fall upward. I don't know if you caught that.
Yes.
But it was pretty.
It was pretty.
It was gross.
And that was the end of the episode. So...
I don't have any theories.
Well, that's right. You said that at the beginning, though.
Yeah. Character of the hour.
Sunny,
Sunny?
I think, for this one. My very close right behind is Reaper.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's always up there. But, she is preparing herself for a date. She's making sure that she has somebody with her, that she's doing her background. She's making sure that,
This guy isn't gonna leave her in an alley
just
to die.
Right, yeah. He's not a super psycho.
He's just a normal psycho.
He's just... But she also will tell him... I mean, Reaper needs a lot of direction.
Yes.
A lot of direction. But she also can tell when he's trying and, like, you know, so saying his name and just, like, being like, no, like, I'm recognizing your effort, even though I don't understand why you have such random behavior, dude. Like, you need to... but then, you know, looking out for UNTak of your exam is coming up, don't come to work. Do your best. Even though she doesn't quite understand the grading scale, now do your best. And you know what? You need the time off to take care of that. And that's more important than a part-time job. I just love Sunny in this episode. And there's more and more screen time we get of Sunny, I always enjoy as well. So
I think mine is EunTak.
Mm-hmm.
And the main reason being that she is this 19-year-old girl trying to mitigate the temper tantrums of a 1,000-year-old creature that really doesn't understand feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Because he spent kind of his whole life suppressing them.
True.
She is doing her darndest to keep up with the mood swings and
lack of information.
Yeah, he's not communicating anything about what's going on or what her role actually is in the situation. So I feel like we got to give her props because...
True. And for being 19.
Getting a workout with the sprinting right now. The pendulum. Final thoughts.
It's a pretty up and down episode emotionally.
It is.
I mean, we have Goblin finally starting to open up, be a little more vulnerable. I mean,
because he thinks he's dying.
Right. Well, but between him and Reaper of like, okay, well, she's decided she's going to pull out the sword now. Like, I'm just rehearsing my death. Mm-hmm. But also being more honest about certain things with UNTak. And even UNTak just realizing I may have overstepped when I said that. That might not have been the right direction.
Right.
So we just, just get more up and down, more just context, more building. And it's, they made their decision to finally pull out the sword, and instead we can't grab it at all.
Instead we end up with a casual makeout sesh.
Not even a makeout sesh, just an awkward...
awkward face touch.
Face touch, yep.
I feel like, and I kind of told you this before, that I am just kind of hitting a plateau with the relationship because I don't want it to move forward until they give her more life experience, more age. Because to me, I just don't see how they have anything in common when she's still kind of a kid.
Yeah.
I get the mutual affection and just that they're both thrown into this fate, like twist of fate, and how they're relying on each other, and that's good and great. But I feel like if they want me to buy into the romance of the story, they've got to give me 10 more years on the girl. Like, come on. At least 5. Like,
give me something.
Put her in her mid-20s. I just can't root for a 19-year-old and a frozen in time 40-year-old. Like, even Bella and Edward weren't this cringe.
They were really cringe.
They were pretty cringe, but at least he was frozen at 17. She got frozen in, like, I don't know, 20s or something. I don't remember. But I just...
I am waiting
for what you promised me.
It is coming.
All right.
I promise.
Well, on that note...
Whew. We have some snacks. No.
I think it's time for us to take a break.
I agree.
Like what you're hearing? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any new episodes. We'd love to connect with you on our Instagram at The Kdrama Show. For more behind-the-scenes content, be sure to check out our YouTube channel. Links are in the show notes. Thanks for hanging out with us on The Kdrama Show with Ashley and Kim, and we'll see you next time.